Welcome to Uniquely Qualified. I'm your friend and host, Liz Ficken, and I'm so glad you're here. Uniquely Qualified is a podcast that empowers guests to share their experience, strength, and hope in overcoming challenges in the spirit of mutual healing. We hope that you'll leave feeling more aware, connected, and supported in navigating the human experience. Today's episode will contain content that discusses death, dying, and substance abuse. Please take care of yourself and engage as it feels supportive. I am thrilled to announce today's guest, my longtime friend from high school, Andrea Carlson. Andrea lives in Portland, Oregon with her cat, Belle. In her free time, Andrea enjoys a good game of disc golf, hiking, spending time with friends, and supporting the arts in every form. Andrea attended North Park University, where she received her Bachelor of Arts in Media Studies Communication and obtained her Master's in Clinical Mental Health from George Fox University in 2023. She is currently a professional counseling associate, providing mental health therapy to patients at a trauma clinic. Andrea Carlson, welcome to the podcast.
I'm here.
She's here. A Carl in the house.
I'm so honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm just so grateful that you are willing to come and talk about your life experiences and share it with me and our listeners. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I thought that before we get into some of the heavier stuff, that we might just talk a little bit about being in high school together.
Oh boy.
And maybe just a little bit about our friendship journey.
Yeah.
So I was prepping for the podcast and I was trying to think of like an exact moment where we met. But what I do know is we met through theater, really, right?
Yeah. You were in band and
Yeah.
I was trying to be a theater kid and we had mutual friends. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember the exact moment we met either, but I just remember junior year we were like that was it. We were together a lot.
We were together a lot. We were by senior year, we went to prom with the same group.
Yep.
Um, like when I would come back from college, you were one of few people that I would, seek out and see you and your family. And we,
Everyone knows Liz Ficken. Like I'll be
oh,
like, yeah, I'm
please.
gonna hang out with Liz Ficken. And everyone's like, oh, Liz Ficken.
I I would say the same thing about you because you don't meet a stranger and you're really good at staying in touch with people. Like that's people know you because you stay in their life and you're an example to me of how to maintain connection.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
you're worth connecting and staying connected too. So,
Oh, oh, thank you.
yeah.
Well, like we said, we met in high school. And I would wonder, that's when your mom was first diagnosed with cancer, was 2006. Um, I'm wondering if you could maybe take a step back, tell us a little bit about your childhood and your family, and then, if I'm not mistaken, 2006, that is like the year where everything started changing. So maybe take
Yeah.
us a little bit before then.
Yeah. Yeah. So my family, I have a brother who's a little bit younger than me and a dad and my mom at the time. Relatively quote unquote normal childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like for the most part, we hadn't really been through anything super difficult. But it was November, I think, of 2006, and my mom was like sick and just like wasn't getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
And like was having a hard time going up and down the stairs without being out of breath and like very fatigued. And it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a joke in our house that like my mom was always tired. And now looking back, like not so much a joke because
Mm-hmm.
of what had happened, but she was exhausted for probably 4 months prior to the diagnosis and then just continued to get worse and worse. And so in December of 2006, she had gotten blood tests at her local PCP and they called her immediately and said, we need you to come in right now. And didn't tell her over the phone what was going on, but later discussed that she had cancer.
Wow.
And I was a senior in high school. So I had
Okay.
just turned 17.
So you're 17, you have a younger brother, you receive this diagnosis, and before your mom got so tired, do you mind just describing her for us? If I might also offer up, tired Darlene is not the Darlene I think of. I
Right.
think of a lady whose house I was always happy to go over to. She was so warm and loving, and I think about things like going on picnics and being outside and walking. And sounds
Yep.
like, I guess I'd love for you to share more about who your mom was before then, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I mean, I almost hate saying this out loud, but like we had the like stereotypical mother-daughter relationship that like a lot of people wanted. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt so grateful for that. We would like take power walks at night. We would, talk about the latest, thing that we read about, what star was dating who. And we were
Yeah.
watching The Bachelorette together. And like we enjoyed each other's company. My friends enjoyed her. She was ambitious. She's the strongest person I've ever known in my entire life. She has more grit than I think anyone would ever know what to do with. But on the other side of that, socially, like just had so many connections with people and loved so well. And is something that like very much admire about her is the community that her and my dad had created, not only in church, because that was part of my growing up, but just like with friends and family and always having people around and inviting friends over or inviting people over who didn't have plans for the holidays, like always looking out for the next person. And yeah, just a beautiful soul doing front handsprings in the front yard, playing volleyball and bruising herself from neck to knees, like just
Mm-hmm.
wild. um yeah.
She was the kind of person, and I remember this also as like a 16, 17-year-old, where like I felt seen by her. I felt
Mm,
like I felt like she wanted me to be around, which I don't know that a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds would be like, oh yeah, these adults want me around them. But she made me feel like I mattered. And when she asked, how are you doing? It wasn't just a like, I'm checking a box talking to my daughter's friend. Like I felt like she actually cared, and then she listened to you. And that was the entirety that I knew her. That was my
yeah.
experience with her. And you're a lot like her in that way.
Mm.
People feel very seen by you.
I appreciate that. That means a great deal to me because I do. I felt that way. And yeah, I'm her daughter, but like there's a difference of like feeling known and seen by someone and actually like being in that moment and feeling that and like that it isn't something that they're doing just to do, but that they genuinely care. And I think she had that.
And she, if memory serves me, she would also be the kind of person who wouldn't, she would like go out of her way. Like if there was an event or like a graduation party, if she saw somebody maybe was by themselves, she would go up to them and say,
Mm.
hi, how are you doing? And I think we need
Yeah.
a lot more people like that in this world.
She's definitely one of the includers, right? Like
Oh yeah.
she gauged a room and wanted to make sure everyone felt seen. And I think the other thing that's really cool is um there are stories that come out even now of my friends where my mom reached out, like
Mm.
in helping make huge life decisions with them. And I'm like, what? And that was just who she was. She was engaged at a very deep level with a lot of people. It's really
Oh,
cool.
love
Yeah.
her. And in case we haven't already said it, her name is Darlene Darls
Yeah,
Carlson.
we call her Darl. Yeah.
Darl. Love her.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking us a little bit of a step back.
Yeah.
Um, let's go back to this blood work that she gets. November 2006.
Yep.
What's the diagnosis? What's the message there from the medical team?
Yeah. So the diagnosis was immediate,
Mm.
based on her complete blood count, which is a normal thing that everyone gets when they go for their annual checkup.
Hmm.
And the white and red blood cells were off, meaning that she had a form of leukemia.
Okay.
To be exact, it's AML or acute myeloid leukemia is what it's called.
Okay. And so, for the purposes of the podcast today, let's just call it AML, but so people know we are talking about an acute and rare form of leukemia.
Yeah. It's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
All blood cancers are aggressive, but
Mm-hmm.
this is particularly aggressive.
I'll just read the definition of
Yep.
AML right now. So, AML is a type of blood cancer. It happens when your bone marrow makes too many immature white blood cells, which can't do their job in fighting infections. It can lead to fatigue, infections, bleeding, and anemia. It's treated with chemotherapy, stem cell transplants, or other therapies to get your blood back on track. Notably, there are about 21,000 AML diagnoses in the United States each year and 11,000 deaths from the disease.
Yeah. And I will say this too. I've known some folks who have actually been diagnosed with this um, in the last couple of years, and technology has changed so significantly in the amount of time that I have been part of this world. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there too of like my experience was a one way, and it's like things are done so differently now. And we have Oregon Health and Science University, who has blood doctors, particularly leukemia and lymphoma research. And so we're in a really prime spot for folks who are going through those diagnoses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good call out. I was surprised as I was doing just research to prepare for today that there were specific medications
Hmm.
for leukemia in general.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh my goodness, we've
Yeah.
come a long way in the last, call it 20 years or so.
And the thing that made my mom's case so acute at the beginning was what happens is when your organs aren't getting the blood needed to survive, they start to shut down. And so
Mm,
lung, heart, all of those things that are used for daily functioning were starting to give out. And that's how quickly it could happen if it
mm-hmm.
wasn't treated, and why people can pass away so quickly if undiagnosed.
Wow. Well, let's maybe segue then into so she gets this diagnosis. She knows she has AML. What's next, and what is it like? I'd love it if you would share about what's next for her, but also what did that look like for your family and your community?
So my dad was a pastor at the time of
Mhm.
a church in the area. And this was like so not anything that any of us were expecting. She was pulled into the office and literally the next day was admitted to our local hospital to stay, because she had had pneumonia on top of just her body giving way.
Oh, yeah.
And so they immediately started chemotherapy. I remember that night going to Macy's with my dad and being like getting her pajamas and like getting stuff for her to go to the hospital because she had to go the next morning. And
Hmm.
all of us just like so shocked at what was happening that we were in disbelief of like this isn't real. Like um and I remember just like collapsing, being like, I don't know if my mom's gonna die. I don't know if she's gonna live. I'm haven't graduated high school yet. I'm like, I'm still doing all the things. I haven't gone to prom. Like I need
Yeah.
her. And I this can't be happening.
Yeah,
Uh
that's so scary. You were still very much a child who needed her mom and who
yeah,
had a very close relationship with her mom. That totally
yeah.
makes sense that you felt that way.
Yeah, so she was immediately put into the hospital, and I think she was there for close to 3 months, the first stint. And that was like through 2 rounds of chemotherapy, and then her just getting like stronger to be able to like, she stopped eating. And so they had like put her on IV food. And so like making sure she could eat and like maintain weight. And all of that was part of her being able to be diagnosed or discharged from the hospital. And at that period of time, I don't know if any of you have felt this way, but there's a moment where the pedestal of your parent and who they are shifts, and all of a sudden you feel like the adult in that
Mm,
relationship. And my mom just being so emotionally tapped out and like grieving her own, like, is this going to end? What's going to happen? And like, not at the time realizing that, but like now looking back of like, yeah, she needed people to support her. And I was one of those people.
Yeah. You know what I'm remembering right now? We already mentioned that we were in the same prom group together, but we were one of those groups that we rented a limo, we went out to dinner, and then we took that limo up to OHSU.
We did.
And so your mom could see you in your prom dress. I'm just remembering that right now, and how much that meant to everybody in your family, that like that limo is making that stop. We're not
Yeah.
going to prom until we go see Darls up on the hill.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we did. And I remember like all the nurses and the doctors and staff like watching. I think we all walked in and like she got to see at least all of us once. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember going up there and being like, it felt really real to me. Like she'd been sick for months and she had been in the hospital, but being like, or like how dissonant it felt. Like we're all
Mm.
dressed up and peak high school, seniors going to prom,
Right.
but then we got to go see somebody who is really sick and that we love so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And so after she got out, discharged from the first hospital, she then went up to OHSU and they performed a bone marrow transplant, um,
Okay.
which is how you described in there where the cells have been totally messed up. And so
Okay.
what they do is they take out all of your bone marrow once they find a match. Be the match is a bone marrow donation um, site, and so people can actually like I tested my saliva, gave it to them, and now I'm in the donor bank to be a donor for someone if they ever matched with my bone marrow.
Thank you for bringing that up. We will make sure that there is a link to Be the Match so that people can learn more and potentially go enter to be a candidate in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah. My aunt actually was a perfect match for my mom's sister, her younger
Mm-hmm.
sister. And so it was kind of a miracle in and of itself because sometimes those wait lists for finding a donor can be a really long time. Sometimes it's not long enough for people. Um, but my aunt was a perfect match and they were able to do the bone marrow donation all in like I think it was like 4 hours. And it's simply like it looks like a blood transfusion is what it
Oh,
looks like. It's a lot different than that, but that's what it, from the outside world, that's what it would look like.
okay. And what happened with the bone marrow? Is it transplant? I'm sorry, is that the right word?
Yeah,
Bone
it's a
marrow
bone marrow
transplant?
transplant.
Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you do the transplant, and then what happens is the body needs 100 days to either recognize it or reject it. And so again, post transplant, she was in the hospital because anytime there was like a fever, any sort of infection, like it was like an immediate emergency room trip. So they kept her pretty closely watched for the first 100 days to see if her body was going to reject the transplant or not. And luckily, it was a success.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, people become neutropenic, which means that their nutrition is not like they don't have the nutrients. They there's just like all these different like things off of the actual transplant based on like bone loss from steroids or like you have all of these different things happening um even though that's not what it's caused from medication and everything else. So
Did you understand this on this technical of a level when you were 17 years old, or is this all, have you learned this looking back?
I don't know if you remember this or not, but I actually was in a health careers program our
Oh,
junior.
go ahead.
You
Sorry.
remember?
I was going to say, I remember some purple scrubs
Yeah,
in the halls
so
of Westview High School.
I wanted to be a nursing, I wanted to be a nurse. And so
Oh,
I was
yeah.
pretty into what was happening. I was at the hospital a lot. I was listening to the doctors and then doing my own research. I was like fascinated by what was happening. So
Mm-hmm.
to some level, yeah, I definitely was in it and could talk about it. Looking back now, I'm like, okay, there's probably a lot more that I didn't know at the time, which is probably a good thing given just the stats and all of that could have caused just more anxiety, I think, than was already present.
It just seems like, I guess I asked the question because it seems like a lot for a not fully developed brain child of the patient to take on, but you did. And you had like you're always like a curious person, like you want to learn. You want to, you're an inquirer.
Yeah, no. And I was so terrified of what was happening that I felt like it was the only control I had to like really dial into what was going on.
Yeah.
And it like didn't give me all the answers I wanted, obviously, but it was enough to like have some knowledge to be able to like ground myself in that.
Mm, that's
Because you grow up like in those moments, you grow up really fast and
mm-hmm.
life kind of like flashes of like, oh, it's happening whether we like it or not. And
Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Right. So she goes through the 100 days. And I'm also just noting in the back of my mind, okay, so given that prom was like spring 2007, we graduated June 2007, we went off to college. Like, how is this all playing into your mom's experience too? And like your
Yeah.
choice to go to school and all of
So
that?
I was going to go to Costa Rica for a year long program.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I had gotten accepted, and I was like, kind of like a, what do they call it? The year where you,
Oh, yeah. Gap year.
like a gap year. Yeah. To like
Yeah.
experience a different culture. I wanted to like really hone in on Spanish, all of these things. And then when my mom got sick, I was like, I had just gone to visit another school in Chicago, and I was like, maybe, maybe I won't go to school at all. And like my
Mm-hmm.
mom and my dad and I sat down, and my mom's like, I really want you to live your life. Like, I really want you to do the thing that you want to do. And she was a big proponent of that. And so I ended up going to Chicago. Um, but at the time, because the bone marrow transplant had taken and like she was home. So things had calmed down, and it wasn't this like life or death situation at that point either. Like the hope was like, oh, she's going to be in remission and we'll go from there. But like she's going to be in remission. She is in
Mm-hmm.
remission. But like she couldn't come to our graduation because she was immunocompromised and being around that many people. So like there were a lot of things like she wasn't able to do because of that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. So
So then you go off to school. She's progressing on a healthy trajectory. What happens next? What's the next part of the story?
yeah, so really she's again a lot of like complications from medication and other things related to treatment,
Mm-hmm.
not the cancer itself, were happening. But she, in that time from 2007 until 2013, was able to get a job. She actually worked for Providence Healthcare, which is the first time she had worked in a long time. She yeah, like she got her life back.
Mm-hmm.
Her hair grew back. She had energy back. I think there was always worry of what if, and I think that played a huge role. But she was able to maintain a life of quote unquote normalcy in that time. And she was getting tested. She was getting blood tests every so often. And at that point, you know what you're looking for in the blood tests. And so if anything unusual were to come up, it was like an immediate, like, okay, I'm going to go talk to my oncologist. I'm going to go do this. There's protocol in place. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of how life happened. I went to school, I graduated. She was able to come back to Chicago a couple different times and visit. She was able to come back for graduation. Um, she was a part of all my friends' lives back there too. Like
Yeah.
Darl was in the Midwest, not Oregon, but in the Midwest too.
Oh, love
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I got a job back here. I was at one point wanting to be in the news and got a job and an internship here in Portland, and I came back and had a couple years after graduating. And then in 2013, got some test results back, saw some bruising that she was really concerned about. And that was the second time that she was diagnosed again that AML had come back.
And this
What
is
I
2013, you said?
2013, yeah.
Okay.
Um, Also in December, might I add.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a lot of like Christmas didn't feel right from 2006 and really never has been the same since.
Yeah. I mean, how could it be?
Yeah.
Um, do you want to talk right now about navigating the holidays, or maybe we keep on the the mom's health thread?
Yeah.
But let's double back to that though, because I know that a lot of people are going to relate
Yeah.
to this happened around the holidays. The holidays are not my favorite time of year. They're actually a really hard time of year for me. So let's
Yeah.
get back to that later for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I didn't know at the time was in 2013 when the diagnosis happened, I was under the impression that like they could do something different and then she would be back in remission and that would be it.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know is what they did was something to hold remission for a little while, but that there was always going to be a reoccurrence that happened. And so I don't remember exactly what they call it, but they put in new bone marrow. They gave my aunts another shot of bone marrow into her own. And it was going to increase her bone marrow with the good cells and basically just see how long they could hold on because they didn't know what else to do. And chemotherapy at that time, they did one round of chemotherapy, did the infusion, and then that was it. They let it rest.
Okay.
Um, and there was not really between 2013 and 2015 when that infusion happened. There was a lot of worry. There was a lot of anxiety and concern of when is this coming back? Again, ignorance is bliss for me looking back because I didn't know that. And so when she was diagnosed for the final time in 2015, in March of 2015, I was like, what? Like, I thought this was in remission. I thought we did this thing and it was going to be able to help. And like, and now we're back to this. Like, how could we be here again? And I think that's the thing with cancers that reoccur or people that have reoccurrences, maybe with a different type of cancer or the same type of cancer, is like, isn't once enough? Like, why do we need to go through this
Right.
twice or three times? And our bodies, like, they're not capable of dealing with that toxic of drug so many years in a row. Um,
Yeah, so challenging and so hard on the system, like you
yeah,
were saying. And I know that we're both not medical experts. We're just sharing our experiences and like for me, the research that I did. But I believe that AML is a kind of cancer where often people will get other kinds of cancers and relapse into it.
yes,
And it's a very highly recurring thing. So that's what's popping up into my mind when you're saying I wish I'm glad that I didn't know
yeah,
XYZ, where I'm thinking, yeah, it's probably good that you didn't know the incidence rates of relapse for AML.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, and at in March of 2015, my mom was like, I want another bone marrow transplant. And like at one point, they were really on that trajectory of that's what they were going to do. However, after so many years of chemotherapy and the amount of damage to her body, like her body just couldn't fight anymore. And so, yeah, in April of 2015, they made the decision to continue with palliative care. And we all chose as a family for my mom to go to a hospice facility rather than her going home, which was a big issue because my mom wanted to go home to die. Like that was a big piece of it. Home was everything for her. Her home was what she created and where she had solace and safety. And to go to this facility was not what she envisioned. However, the medical necessity of
Mm-hmm.
coming off of all the medications and drugs and all the things um, was going to be too much for like a home hospice facility to do. And so we ended up going to a place called Hopewell House, which is unfortunately no longer here. Um,
Okay.
but it was a beautiful house up in the West Hills right behind OHSU. And so she was given 2 days. They said she won't last more than 2 days. And Darl, in her typical fashion, lasted 10.
There she
And
goes. That's our girl.
she was speaking Spanish to the cleaning lady. She was writing all her grievances off. She was Facebook messaging people, telling them she loved them. She was literally dotting every I and crossing every T. And had a huge amount of peace for what was next, which is a very, now I'm like so grateful that that was the experience that we had, because it's not everyone's experience when it comes to death.
Yeah, I am so glad that she was able to experience that peace. And I feel like the older you get, the more that that's what you want for people and animals that you love, is just peace when they go. So I'm
Yeah.
just so glad that that was.
And her faith played a huge piece into that too, right? Like she felt she knew where she was going and where she was, with her relationship with her higher power. And so yeah, I think there was that too. um yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, faith was a huge part of your family of origin, and she was a woman of faith, and
Mhm.
so um, I'm not surprised that she just felt held in that faith till the
Yeah.
very end.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place. Like, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but for what it was, her room looked out into this like forested area, and like there was fresh breeze coming in. We were able to
Mm,
bring our animals in to be with her. We had a dog that like loved her with everything he had. He was able to be up there, and we were continuously surrounded by not just church community, but family and friends. My best friend flew home from Australia. Um,
mhm,
Another couple friends flew from Chicago. Like, everyone just came and gathered and supported all of us.
mhm.
And it was incredible. Like, I just feel so grateful for the people that were there during that time.
I'm so glad to hear that. Like, as somebody who lived through it alongside you, I remember that, but hearing it years later, it's just that's so remarkable. People don't often get that. But
There
she
are a lot of
was
people in,
loved. Hmm.
yeah, there are a lot of people that go through this cancer journey by themselves and or without family. And I'm grateful that there are a lot of resources out there to make people not feel so alone in those settings now.
Would you mind sharing about what that was like for you? Your experience with your mom's been given single digit days to live. She's in this beautiful place. People are coming around you, but what's that like for you, her daughter?
Time stood still in that place. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. I remember driving there and like looking in the cars next to me, and people were just living their life and not feeling like I was in the same dimension. I deal with severe anxiety, and so I was trying to keep it together, but I was also so terrified for what laid ahead, and what our life was going to look like, what was going to happen. I was still unmarried. I was, had finished school. I was trying to figure out, I was in my mid 20s. Like, I was trying to figure out life, um, and none of my friends have experienced, none of my close friends had experienced the loss of a parent. And so I just kind of was like, blind. Like, I just didn't know what was going to happen, or what was going to happen. Yeah, where I was going to go. And um I remember my mom having these like pretty intense conversations with like people. Like, she pulled my brother's girlfriend aside and was like, listen, you're going to need to do this, 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 and this. She had to come to Jesus with my dad. She had like a pretty intense conversation with my brother. And I remember waiting to have this conversation with her. Like, what are you going to tell me? What do I need to know? And she never told me. She just said, I know you're going to be okay. I know you're going to be okay. She had also lost her dad. He died when he was 50. And so she had experienced a parent dying and had said to us, like, this is my biggest fear. Like, my biggest fear is coming true is that I'm leaving my family early. And she told me, knowing that I also was very anxious, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter how hard you worry, at the end of the day, that doesn't change what's going to happen. You're only wasting your life worrying. And
Wow.
very profound.
Profound. Absolutely.
In the moment, I was like, fuck you. Like, that's not what I want. Like, I need something. I need solitude. Like, that wasn't enough. Looking back now, I'm like, those are words I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're like, Mom, give me something to hold on to here. Like, just saying it's going to be okay. Give me instructions. How?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told her, I said, I will be here through all of it, but I will not be here when you die. I cannot be here when you die. And I was the only person who was with her when she took her last breath. And part of me is like, you know what, Mom? All right, you win. I get it. You're teaching me my final lesson. Like, that no matter what I say I can't do, I can do it. I will do it. It's uncomfortable, it's hard, but I will do it. And I did. And it now looking back, it's one of the most precious moments in my entire life that I would never take back.
That's absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm just filled with so much regard and respect and love for you right now.
Mm.
Do you mind if we talk about the next part of this? So you're with her, she passes. What I do know without you connecting the dots is that there was a big old celebration of life where it was standing room only. But so can you fill in the gaps between she's in palliative care, she
Yeah.
passes, and next steps?
It's a blur. There were
Yeah,
a
of
lot of
course.
people. There were a lot of meals that people were sending. There were a lot of cards. There were a lot of flowers. We did the celebration of life like a week after she passed away. And it was packed. And I remember sitting there losing my mind in the actual celebration of life. And then as soon as it was over, it was like I kind of put this like game face on to like face all of these people and like not showing like the messy side of grief. And I never really figured out why, but that has been a consistent theme for me of like, you can be like really messed up inside and then like I turn it on to like show up and do what I need to do to like get through it. But for anyone who's lost a parent or anyone near and dear to them, it's this weird period of like everyone's giving you all this attention and love and you know the cards and the flowers and all of it, and then the celebration of life happens, and it's like, and then it's just done? Question mark.
Yeah.
You know, like in most cultures, there's a lot of celebration. There's like a month of mourning together,
Mm-hmm.
and it's this like community oriented thing. And I think what happens more times than not in the United States is like, it's just like, okay, you do this, and then it's done. And then you like get over it, is
Mm,
what I've heard people say. Um, and grief is the most unlinear, messy, bullshit mind fuck you'll ever go through.
yeah.
And I don't think anyone should ever be alone in that. Like, as much as they can't be alone, like they shouldn't be alone.
Was that your experience? Did you feel the way I'm hearing you is that it sounds like there was a lot of attention. And also I will say, not that I have to keep chiming in and being like, and I was there for this part, but
No, I love it.
I was at the celebration of life. It was big church, literally standing room only. But I remember the family, you were the last in, which I know is pretty standard. But then after it was over and it was just so heartfelt, so full of love, and it's exactly what she would have wanted.
Oh, she
You,
planned it
oh,
all.
oh, she did.
Yeah. Yeah. She planned it
Of
all. Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. T crossed, I dotted, I guess.
Yep.
But you all correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm remembering almost like a receiving line
Mm-hmm.
where I just remember thinking, been to a lot of funerals. I've only remember this being at weddings. And I guess I'm bringing that up to say, like, you were very visible. And people, like these hundreds and hundreds of people that were there, were coming up to you.
People I hadn't seen in
Yeah,
decades.
probably since you were a child, little
Yeah.
girl. Yeah. So
It
you're,
was surreal.
oh, I can imagine, where you're getting all this attention, all this resource, all this just community around you. And then if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like quickly that dissipated. Am I
Yeah.
hearing
And
that
I mean, it's
correctly?
no one's fault, right? Like life goes on. I think I just didn't recognize we had had all this support even prior to her passing away, and like thinking that like that just, yeah, that it just went away like pretty quickly after she had been buried, that I was like, oh my gosh, like this feels so lonely.
Right. Well, and I think I like your point about how different cultures just celebrate death differently. Maybe celebrate sounds like a crass word to use, but I do think, sitting Shiva
Yeah.
or other cultures where it's months or you are not alone, like members of the family are being taken care of for an extended period of time. And your mom passed, and then a week later, you have the celebration of life. You're not calling anybody out or saying anybody did anything wrong, but you're highlighting in our culture, it's almost like transactional. Like, all right,
Yeah.
we brought the hot plate,
Yeah.
we've put her to rest, and now we're back to our business as usual, and we're carrying
Yeah.
it around all on our own. Like, your mom was so loved that it's not like people were like, oh, on to the next thing, but it wasn't like with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I sound a little dramatic, but yeah, there were people, but it just wasn't as consistent. And I was so used to the consistency of being surrounded by family and friends that it felt like a drop off. Like, you step off the cliff kind of, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like totally different world. And then you navigate this next year of life where it's like every first thing that's happening and she's not there, and you're navigating the holidays, and you're navigating, birthdays, and you're navigating, you know, trying to think of all the things that happen, but like there's all these milestones that happen and
Right.
she's like not there. And and you're reminded, for me, with the medical piece of it, like there was a lot of trauma, like a lot of medical trauma. There were
Mm-hmm.
ambulance trips, there were trips to the ICU, there were moments that the doctor said she's not gonna make it. And so I was like on this reminder of, okay, a year ago right now, like this is when they told me this, and a year ago she was in the ICU, and a year ago this happened. And so like for a long time, that was what was replaying, was like that medical trauma of like how all of this ended. um and we're going into year 10 of her being gone now. And
Wow.
I think I'm now more so not paying attention to that. It's more about like who she was and the life we had prior to her being sick. But it took a really long time to like get there.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to or feel up to talking about what happened to your immediate family? Because I think that might be an interesting piece where some people might have this idea that a member of your immediate family passes away, gets sick, and that people come together and you're stronger than ever.
Mm,
And I don't think that's always true. And I
no.
don't think that's your experience. Do you mind speaking to that at all?
Yeah, again, I think there's a lot of assumptions. I think there's a lot of cultural assumptions about death and dying. And maybe that's from the movies, maybe that's from, I don't know where all those are perceived. And I was under the impression that like okay, like this family member dies and we come together and we grieve together. And that was not the case. My brother had struggled with drugs in high school. And as my mom was sick, progressively got more into drugs, harder drugs, and started losing himself in that. And my dad, I think, was so grief stricken. He had a lot going on, and I don't know if he necessarily knew how to, none of us know how to handle our emotions in that.
Right.
And and I didn't know how to handle my emotions in that. And like we weren't this like hug love family either. Like my mom was kind of the glue for all of us. And so when that glue had dissipated, it was like we had all kind of separated and grieved the way that we needed to in our own way, whether it was drugs or turning to friends or whatever our coping strategies were. We did that to help ourselves, but it wasn't together. And honestly, it took several years for any of that to even begin to heal.
Uh, that that makes such sense to me. I think about other families where you lose a mom, an aunt, one of those pieces of cohesion in the family,
Yeah.
and suddenly you all look at each other, or we all look at each other and we go, well, how do we do this Christmas thing now that she's gone? And
Mm-hmm.
well, she always made this birthday dessert. Is somebody else going to do it, or is this also part of our new normal? There's just a lot of loss of normalcy, to put it mildly.
And I think for me, as the only female left in our family, like I think there was pieces of my dad and my brother that like looked to me to like be some of that. Um, and I didn't really know how to do that. And I think there was a lot of trying to get our needs met outside of what was normal for our family, right? Like it felt better
Totally.
to do something different than to do something that would be the same tradition that we did together as a family without her.
Yeah.
Because that's really painful. And it's very uncomfortable to sit in that, right? And so much of grief and grief work is sitting in that uncomfortable and letting those moments pass through to grieve your lost loved one. And not everyone is capable or willing to do that work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess on the note of the work, the grief work that I know that you have done over the last 10 years, maybe now would be a good time for us to double back on talking about navigating the holidays,
Mm.
or other special events. Like in your experience, how do you get through it? What do you do?
Me personally, I relied on my friend group. I'm very fortunate to have like a pretty cohesive group of women that I've known most of my life. And their moms knew my mom. And so they were like, you're coming over for Thanksgiving, you're coming over for Christmas Eve, you're coming over for Christmas. Like, I got you a stocking, I got you some gifts, like, just so taken care of. Um,
I love that. Women taking care of their friend's child. Are you kidding me? That's the good stuff of humanity right there.
it is.
I
And they
love that.
continue to do that. Even 10 years later, as a grown woman, they're like, let's get coffee. I want to check in on you. I
Mm,
want to know what's going on in your life. Your mom would be so proud of the things that you've done, all of these things, and that are again just like such a beautiful legacy that those friendships have left, and that I get to like still bear fruit from.
yeah.
um, I think also like finding the things that give you joy. Like there were things, me and my mom did puzzles together, so like I still do the
Mm.
same puzzle every year on Christmas.
Oh, I
um
didn't know that. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, there are things that like just bring like that warm and fuzzy vibe to me, or like an ornament that she picked out, or I think the other thing too is like talking about it. I don't think a lot of people talk about their loved ones who pass away because people don't know how to deal with that.
Hmm.
And as a therapist who doesn't want to be a grief therapist, but also like has a lot of stuff coming her way of like, maybe you will be doing some of this work later on in life, is having a place to be able to share those memories, good, bad, ugly, all of it, but like talk about the person that is no longer here, because that's how you honor their legacy. And that's how I'm like, I want this to feel like it happened, because this is a big part of my life and it did happen and I need to talk about it. Um,
Well, I'm so honored that you're sharing that here today with me and with our listeners. And to echo what your mom's friends say, I know without a doubt that she is so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you have other ways of keeping her spirit with you or honoring her memory? Just maybe at significant life moments, or is there like a daily practice? It's okay if you don't have an answer. I just,
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I'm like not your typical grave site goer. Like, I think a lot of people, when people pass away, will go to the grave and like spend time there and feel close to their loved one. For some reason, that's not been my, I just haven't felt that. And so sometimes it'll be like going on a walk, like right about the time it's like dusk, and like thinking about conversations that we had. She's a huge person that loves red vines. And so I will sometimes buy a box of red vines in honor of her, and maybe go to a spot that we used to go and just have a couple red vines and think about her. But she also went to George Fox and graduated. She was the first person on her side of the family to graduate with a bachelor's degree from George Fox in 2012, 2013, 20, no, sorry, way back, 2005, she graduated.
oh my
And she had her
gosh.
degree in marriage and family therapy. And
Well, well,
so,
well.
yeah, so it comes full circle, as I got my clinical mental health degree from George Fox in 2023. But like those moments, I'm like, we're in sync. Like, I know she's got me, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I know she's watching, and I feel supported by her in little details of life that don't make sense to anyone else.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about what it has been like being the sister of somebody who deals with addiction?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall there's a lot of us out there that know, well, I'm pretty sure most of us all know someone who's struggled with addiction, or is in their family. And
It's not to interrupt you, but it's actually 50% of people in the United States
right.
have a family member who has or was or is struggling with addiction. 50%.
Yeah.
So not to interrupt you, but yeah,
No,
you're
it's
definitely,
prevalent.
we're not alone. We're not alone.
And I think that's the biggest piece of it, is we are not alone. And it has been a struggle for a really long time. And I think it's taken me going through a counseling program and a lot of my own therapy and work around boundaries and understanding addiction, for me to be able to accept the things that I can't change with my brother. I have all the love and support for him and will do the things that feel appropriate. And that's all I can do. And that's shitty to say, like, it doesn't feel like it's enough. Um, but it's a disease at the end of the day. And it comes down to that person choosing what life they want to live and how they can rebuild their life if they so choose that path. And it has to be up to him to make that choice. And that is the acceptance that's taken a really long time. No one else can choose that but
Mm-hmm.
him.
And like you said, it is a disease. Addiction is cunning, baffling, and powerful.
Mm.
Another factoid about addiction in the United States: opioid overdose is the number one cause of death in the United States. So that is
Yeah.
just, our society, we are all touched by addiction in some way or another. And I think that one of the most challenging things when you witness somebody that you love going through that is having healthy boundaries for
Mm,
your self-preservation. And that's what I just heard you describe was
yeah.
I had to take care of myself. I had to go to therapy. I went through grad school and I learned about all this stuff and I've now arrived here. But that doesn't diminish the fact that it's painful, challenging, and
Well, and I don't want to lose another family member. At the end of the day, like I don't want to lose
yeah.
another family member. And more often than not, when people are dealing with narcotics or any heavy, heavy substances, fentanyl is more likely than not at play. And so, yeah, it's just very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With both your mom's cancer experience and death and your brother's experience with addiction, have you ever sought out or benefited from going to any support groups or facilitated
Mm.
connection organizations?
I went to Naranon, which
Which
is NA for family members, parents of people with addiction. I probably did that for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. It was in the process of me really trying to understand what I knew about addiction. I didn't know. I think there was a lot of enabling behaviors that I was participating in unbeknownst, and like really needed to understand what those were for me and what I needed to do. But it was a community that got it. It was a community that understood all the emotions that someone who loves someone else in addiction feels, and to be acknowledged and heard and seen in that was so important for me at that time. There was, the psychoeducation around it, but also just the community support and care of other people checking in and wanting to know how I'm doing. And those little things matter when you're going through something. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And so NA, in case we didn't say it, is Narcotics Anonymous. It's a 12-step program, and Naranon is the for the family members, the loved ones of people who are
Yeah.
dealing with narcotic addiction. Um, in the Portland area, I know we have a few ways to access those kinds of resources. Did you just find that on a website? Like if other people, if
Mm-hmm.
people are hearing you and they're going, oh man, maybe I need to check one of those out. How did you find it? And do you have recommendations for how others could?
Well, one of the benefits that our weird society had happened when COVID happened was that people created these meetings virtually everywhere. And so if you go to
Yeah.
naranon.com, you're able to find a virtual meeting in any time zone at any time, day or night. And so I think that accessibility has been actually an amazing gift. There are some meetings. I went to a meeting in person, um, close to the hospital on the west side of Portland. But yeah, most of them I know are all virtual though. And I yeah, either way is great. If you like to connect in person, like I really liked meeting people and like being in the same space, but I know a lot of folks like to just be at home and like that's where they feel safe, and that you can still meet people and create, community in that.
Yeah. And that is great that there are options. You can go and hold space in person with people like you
Yeah.
did, but then also you can tune in from home and you don't, you can, like you said, make your own decisions about your level of comfort.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you go through it's been almost 10 years,
Yeah.
and in that time I've seen you overcome so many things. I know we just touched on a couple, but one of them, like you mentioned, was you went to George Fox. You got your master's in clinical mental health. Can you just tell me a little bit about that experience and the work that you do now, working with
Mm,
patients at a trauma clinic?
yeah. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. And to be honest with you, the night before I had my interview for it, I was like, I just don't think I can do this. I just don't. I think
Yeah.
this is too big of a taking. And it was literally the week before the world shut down that I had my interview. And I got in and I did most of it online, but I met these people in the program who like saw me, who got me,
Mm,
who had also been through pretty horrific things and came out of it wanting to be there for other people and support other people in a way that like you really only can do when you have experienced or known trauma at that level. And it's a beautiful thing, you know, we're all fucked up in some way, but it like
yeah.
brings us together and it's beautiful. Um, and I think the program itself was, I think the hardest part was that we had to literally uncover every rock in our life and look underneath it and do the work around it.
Can you give some
Spiritual.
examples of that? Oh, sorry. I did not
Yeah.
mean to interrupt you there. I
No, no,
remember
no.
some of the things you talked about, which, by the way, she was working full time while she was doing this as well. So she wasn't just going to school, she was also paying the bills and holding a job,
Thank
doing
you.
it all.
Just trying.
Well, I feel like it's important to know there's a big difference between going to school, just going to school, and doing the kind of work that you're about to describe that I know you were doing from like a self-inquiry perspective, and doing that plus having a job. So I just want to make sure people know that you were
Thank
holding
you.
a lot while you were doing this.
Yeah. Yes. That is probably an important piece of this. It was a spiritual component of understanding who you are
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, what you bring into the room, what values you hold, um, what core values you believe about yourself, how you see yourself. It's also your sexuality, what you feel about gender. I mean, literally, my first semester I was in a class called Race and Trauma, and it was
Mm,
right when George Floyd died, and
whoa.
it was the most impactful um, class I will ever, and it's because it really made me do the work around my whiteness, how I show up into a room, how I teach myself and educate myself on what's important and how to be in rooms with people who have not experienced my privilege. That alone, right, is just like so
Yes.
much work and continue to do that, right? Like, and
Right.
continue to learn and grow. And how do you continue to seek and be curious and show up in a space where it's not comfortable? You're not always right. You hold some privilege that
Mm,
feels really gnarly. Like all of those
yeah.
pieces were the things that I began to learn how to navigate. And I mean, I will always learn. I will always continue to learn. And I think that's
Right.
another reason I chose this profession is that it is never done. And
Mm-hmm.
there's always something to be taught, learned, acknowledged.
That's incredible. Listeners, I almost broke my neck nodding along as she was saying. It was just like, yes, speaking truth to power about doing the work, taking a look at yourself, holding yourself accountable,
Yes.
and choosing to engage in a career where you're helping other people and like inherently learning along the way. That's just incredible.
Thank you. I love it. Like again, one of the best decisions I've ever made. I'm 2 years out and I am working at a trauma clinic in Portland. We specify, not specify, a lot of us have specialties with um, CPTSD, which is technically chronic PTSD. And we work alongside first responders. We work alongside crime victims. Sex trafficking survivors are just a few of the types of clients that we see. But it's trauma is there's no definition of what trauma is. It's per person and how that's emotionally, physically, and spiritually felt in your body, and
Mm,
that's what we treat. There's no like checklist for what you need or don't need to be seen there, and The women that I work with are just, I couldn't write a better group of people if I tried.
Oh,
Like they're wonderful. So
oh, I love to hear that. The world deserves to have good people on the front lines like you all.
thank you.
But I also have to ask, with that, there's no way you don't take some of that on, right? Like how do you take care of yourself? How do you just like what's your care and keeping routine like? That
Yeah.
doesn't roll off you.
No, and it's a learning process. I think it's probably the steepest learning curve in all that I've experienced is if you're going to show up for people, you also have to have your glass empty enough so that like you're not tapped out. And so, I learned in my first like internship that like if I bring my slippers into the car and I switch from my like nice shoes from work to my slippers and a sweatshirt, that like I'm in my mind transitioning from like work to home. And then I would pick a destination on my way home. And at that point, I would stop thinking about the day and I would start focusing on where I was going. So those were like two
I
tools that I
love
use.
that.
Yeah.
Those are great tools.
Yeah. I also use techniques like in session to like make sure that I'm protecting my own peace in that. It doesn't mean that I'm not listening or that I'm not present, but it's just a way to protect things not to like go into my heart and my soul, but that I'm there to accept and like be there in that moment with people without like fully taking it in and protecting my own. Because vicarious trauma or secondary trauma, secondary traumatic stress is a real thing for health workers, police officers, any frontline job. When you're
Yeah.
hearing about traumatic stories, like that is part of the job. And so it's learning how to allow yourself to leave that at the office or at home. Do I have my own therapist? Fuck yes, I do. I see her every
Yeah.
week and I
Let's
will,
go.
you know, that is something
Mm-hmm.
I advocate for. And also just like, I really hate the term self-care. I tell my clients all the time, I really hate it because I think there's this notion of like working out and eating well. No,
Face
self-care.
masks. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Self-care is a thing that like you do and you just feel so rejuvenated and
Mm-hmm.
find those things, crafts. I love making soups in the fall. I love taking power walks. Those are things that like refuel me, seeing people in my community. And so figuring out what those things are really will help you take care of yourself.
I love that. Thank you for sharing how you take care of yourself because I don't think as many people have a job where they are incurring other people's trauma. And so it's
Right.
just really helpful to know that there are ways that we can practice self care in a way that's more than just like an aesthetic thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 So we just came back from a quick little break and we were talking about Andrea's self care practices and how she takes care of herself. And I know that one of the things that she and I have in common is that we're pet people and we
Yeah.
love our fur babies.
Got one of
Um,
them sitting on my lap right now.
yeah, if listeners could see what was happening, you would see an active little Belle just bopping
Yeah.
around, needing her mother's attention. Um, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your experience as a pet parent and your recent loss?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things, and for all of you that are out there and have pets, I'm sure you can also relate that like these little creatures are so life-giving.
Yes.
Sometimes to the point where we don't even recognize like how life-giving they are until they're no
Mm-hmm.
longer with us. Um, I had a 14-year-old black and white tuxedo Mancoon mix named Floyd, who I got in 2014, right before everything happened with my mom passing. Um, and I just lost him. It was 2 weeks ago today, actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And, I think so many of us seek safety and to feel known and seen or be
Mm-hmm.
wanted. And I think pets provide this like unconditional positive regard for us. And it's one of the most secure attachments that we ever have, I think, in
Yeah.
in our lives. And yeah, I'm feeling that. He was old and he definitely had some health issues. And so there's like relief for him of like I want him to be in a better place, but also like the emptiness that's left for both of us, me and Belle, like is there's a hole. And
Mm-hmm.
um and I think society often kind of like poo-poos animals and like, oh, it's an animal, like
Mm-hmm.
you're okay. And I think, to be honest with you, I think sometimes animals are grieved harder than humans in some capacity.
Right. Like I, my understanding is that for many people, the loss of a pet is more complex because of things like my pet couldn't articulate what they needed. Did I do the right thing for them?
Mm,
Or like I didn't even realize that they were such an anchor. And what do you mean I don't have somebody to walk with me in the morning or somebody to come home to and feed at night? Just
yeah.
this sense of normalcy and grounding in our lives. And I will say, I think that employers should give bereavement leave for the loss
Mm.
of a pet, like you would with an immediate family member. I have known some managers who do that. And so, people who are out there, if you are in management and you have somebody who loses a pet, Andrea and I are here to advocate for giving those people some grace and let them treat that like an immediate family member because that's that kind of loss, the experience, right?
I was a mess and I
How
took
could
the
you
day off.
not be? Yeah,
Right.
you
I took the
should.
day off. But even in the second day, I was crying and like it's this huge part of your life that's all of a sudden literally gone in minutes. And then you're supposed to like figure out how to navigate that in a day or two. Like,
It's unrealistic, not how human beings work.
right.
You don't just lose something that was a forever part of your life, and especially with the case of Floyd, or the Floydster, as some of
Yeah.
us would call him. The fact that he was there with you,
Mm,
you know, knew your mom,
yeah.
was a part of your life. That's significant.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you took the time for yourself, and I know that you would encourage other people to ask for what they need to when going through pet loss like that.
It is a goal of mine someday to like have some sort of like therapy animal working with me for when people like with people in the room to have like a
Oh,
dog. I
wow.
think a dog is probably a lot of people are allergic to cats, so that doesn't usually work. But yeah, to have like a therapy dog in the room that goes to work with me and is there to support my clients.
Oh, you would be the perfect one to have a therapy dog.
Yeah.
Oh, people would be even more excited to see you.
If it's not me they're coming for, it's the dog.
They're like, anyway, about
Yeah.
Archibald here.
Kind of a cute name. Call him
Ooh,
Archie.
Archie, little Archie.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
No, but not to you know me, I'll find a way to bring humor in, not always appropriately. But I didn't know that that was an aspiration for you, and I love that.
Yeah. Actually, when my mom was in the hospital on the oncology floor, they have therapy dogs that come in. Um,
Oh, good.
it's one of the services they offer. They also offer oncology massage for people who have like horrific chronic pain,
Oh, good.
which I didn't know. So, I mean, there's all these resources too for people, and it's amazing what.
That is amazing because so my grandpa has been living with prostate cancer for quite some time, and
Mm,
he I won't name the name of the chain, but there's a chain that's all across the United States where you can have a subscription and get a massage. And because of when he had completed radiation, um, he showed up and they would not perform
mm,
massage on him. And he was like in his late 80s at the time, and I just felt so bad where they're like, sorry, we can't. So the fact that oncology massage is a thing, I guess I'm bringing that forward to say that that sounds so necessary.
yeah,
And people deserve that kind of care when they're living in chronic pain.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there anything else that you would like to re-emphasize or circle back on? I do have some end of show questions that are the three questions that I ask every guest at the end of each show.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Ready to go for it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Andrea, if you could go back to 2015 when your mom passed, what would you say to that younger version of yourself?
Oh, it's interesting because in my mind I'm saying like I would tell her it's gonna be okay, which is what my
Your
mom
mom
said to me.
said, yeah.
Um, it doesn't make the moment easier, right? And I think there's a lot of emphasis on like what's gonna make things better. And sometimes like it's not in the moment, it's for the future. And so just keeping an ounce of hope that like you're gonna make it through. You're strong enough to wake up day after day and do the damn thing, even if it's soul crushing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I would tell her.
I love that. Darl's words live on. They were
Mm-hmm.
very, very wise. Okay, question two. What has been the most helpful tool or resource in navigating challenges?
I think I have two.
Okay.
Not because I'm a therapist, but therapy has done incredible things for me, and I've allowed myself to do the hard work. And I say that because I think it's important to acknowledge that therapy is not just going and showing up, but it's the amount that you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And I didn't really maybe necessarily know that at the beginning of my journey with therapy, but as I continue and now as I'm doing it as a profession, and I tell my clients, like, you put into this what you want to get out of it. It's up to you to make that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I've benefited greatly from being my most vulnerable, heartbroken, disheveled self, like, and showing up in that space and feeling uncomfortable.
We are pro therapy, underline and bold that pro here at Uniquely Qualified. And similarly for me, just starting my journey with my current therapist, who I also see every
Mm,
week,
yep.
it started with this commitment for me to myself saying, I'm going to be completely honest with this individual. I trust this person. I felt safe with her, and it's changed my life. But
Mm,
it was the one space that I permitted myself to be honest with myself and with her.
yeah.
Not everybody has to take on that flavor, but I just want to like emphasize that I'm so glad that's one of your tools. And as
Yeah.
somebody who's not a therapist, pro therapy, take care of
Yeah.
yourself, talk to somebody. There
Yeah.
are people like Andrea Carlson in the world that you could be talking to, and maybe Archibald one day.
Yeah. Maybe Archie. Yeah. Me and Archie.
But did,
And
did you
then,
have did you have another one?
yeah. And then the second one I would say is find your people, find that
Mm-hmm.
community, find, the volleyball league, find the Dungeon and Dragon game. Like, I don't care what it is, find a place where you can show up and be yourself, because we need other people in this world. We were built as humans to need other people, and none of us should ever have to go through any of this alone, ever.
Well said. I love that. And you do that. You do volleyball leagues, you do bowling leagues, you what else do you do?
I have a group of girls. We see each other at least once a month. We go on
Mm-hmm.
trips 2 times a year. I have my pets that I talk to.
Yeah. Same.
No,
Same.
but like, I FaceTime the people that I
Yeah.
maybe can't see physically. I, you know, put together a Zoom meeting and have happy hour with girls in the Midwest. Like, I connect. That
Yeah.
is what I do. And
So
yeah,
your tools, we got therapy and we got find your people.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Okay, and then this is question 3. If you could say anything to someone out there who relates to your story, what would you
Mm,
say to them?
I would say that there are going to be some really dark seasons in your life,
Mm.
and you got this. You're not alone. And there are resources, even if you do feel alone, that like no one should have to navigate this by themselves. And um, that it will get better. It will. No
Mm.
emotion, no feeling will ever last forever. And if that's the one thing that you have to continue to tell yourself to get through it, like you will by putting one foot in front of the next.
That's such a hopeful and inspirational message. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, and thank you so much for being on the show. I am just so grateful for you. This has been such a wonderful conversation. For our listeners, links and supporting documentation for this episode will be included in show notes. So we mentioned a few things like Be the Match and naranon.com. We'll make sure that those are in notes, and we'll also include a list to the American Cancer Society so that you can learn a little bit more about AML. Also, please check us out on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is uniquely qualified pod. When this goes live, we will have some pictures of our girl Andrea Carlson, links to resources in Instagram stories. And thank you all for being here. Just remember, each of us is uniquely qualified.